and boom goes the dynamite.
Welcome back to the only live Monday through Friday lacrosse talk show. This is the Daily Dive. I am your host, Michael Karvelis. To everyone on the West Coast, good morning. And to everyone on the East Coast, good afternoon. It's time for lunch and some lacrosse talk. On today's show, our top story will be the PLL college draft from last night. Boy, were we wrong, or at least the mock draft I had was wrong. But we're going to break down some of the things and how it affiliates with the NLL. Also, I'll respond to the people on Twitter who do not like me calling out Paul Rabel. And it's an ongoing thing with the show. As for the next part of our show, another playoff preview. This one, the conference finals. We'll be joined by Pat Gregoire, an NLL and TSN analyst and Thunderbirds analyst, along with Ryan Ballantine, the Calgary Roughnecks analyst. You've seen them both on the show. You've seen them on TV, etc. Cannot wait to talk all things conference finals. And then there were four. And no, one of them is not the Seals. I'm sorry. So let's get to our top story presented by Daily Dive Lax, our store for the best in merchandise with this logo on it. Go there, check it out, Daily Dive Lax on social media. Click the link tree, and you can see the Our Store tab and get the awesome merchandise. There's new shirts being added. I think you guys will enjoy them. One of them looks like a Coca-Cola shirt, if I can even say that, and not get fined for that. But I think you guys will like what you see. Best way to support the show is we tried to grow the game. So let's get to that top story, the Premier Lacrosse League college draft from last night. I do want to give a shout out once again to Paul Rabel for being able to nudge his way into First Take. I thought that was good for the game and good for the PLL. As much as I do like to harp on that because I am a fan of the NLL more so, I do think it's awesome that he was able to do that because, again, I think that's good for the exposure of lacrosse in general. So here are the first-round selections who have also previously been drafted to the NLL. Remember, Thomas McConvey was a guy that we thought was going to go number one and could have joined Jeff T. Lyle Thompson as the only players to be drafted first in the box and field lacrosse leagues, along with another historical player, which of course I'm going to forget. But here are some of the players that we also got to see. So, Owen Grant, who was drafted number 2, and by the way, shot number 1 overall pick. Gavin Adler, defense out of Cornell. How about the defense? That was awesome. Like I said, both sides of the floor are played. It's awesome that he was the number 1 pick to the Atlas, who of course got that pick from the Cannons in exchange for a bag of chips and a Pepsi. I'm jealous of that, just to let you know. But Owen Grant to the Redwoods at number 2 and number 3 overall to the went number 3 to the Warriors in the 2022 entry draft. So he's a pretty good player. And as I said, Vancouver stunk last season. It's good they got a player like him coming in. And he may play defense in the PLL. I have not looked at much of these guys, but sometimes that could be a guy who's great in defense and transition. So we'll see how Vancouver does with him. And, of course, the Redwoods. Brett McCarr, number 3 overall to the Atlas. Of course, they had 2 of the top 4 picks, which is insane. He was the 102 overall to the Toronto Rock, who we're going to talk about in the next segment. He was in the 2022 entry draft as well. Sam Handley went to the Chrome and was at number 4. It was number 83 to the New York Riptide in 2022. So a lot of these guys, we bent through this story last year. PLL's late to the party. I'm kidding. Shout out to these guys for getting drafted and making the money. This name is awesome, and I want to get to this guy because, like I said, just the name in general is insane, and that's just me being a casual here. But Mike Sisselberger, I hope to God I'm pronouncing that right for my own sake, went number 5 overall to the Archers, and he was number 100 to the San Diego Seals. Of course, the rich get richer in 2022. And, of course, last year we also got to see the number 56 to the Rock, got number 6 pick in this draft, Tucker Dordovich, number 6 to the Whipsnakes. And, of course, Will Bowen went to round one, pick 7, and then round 8, the Water Dogs picked up. Pick 8, the Water Dogs picked up the guy that was mocked number 1 in foul. As I said, midfield is obviously French. In lacrosse, it's not French. It's Spanish or whatever language you want to say for forward in the box lacrosse game. So just let you guys know. But I'm excited. Again, I will try to watch more PLL. Our show will most likely not go all off-season long, but I will try to keep up with the PLL as much as I can, especially on social media. So that'll be a fun thing to do. But there is your first round. Again, thank you. It's awesome that ESPN does this. Albeit the PLL, I'll take what I can take for now. And, of course, Gatorade sponsored it, but they don't sponsor us, but it's still cool. It's good for exposure. Shout out to those young guys who got drafted. The game grows stronger and better every single day. But, of course, we are in the playoffs of the National Lacrosse League. And I cannot wait to get this next segment. Remember last week we got Cody Jansen and Maggie Hale? As great as they were, our guests this week are going to try to run up them. I'm kidding. We're going to have our conference finals preview. There are 4 teams left: the Rock, the Bandits, the Roughnecks, and the Mammoth, the defending champion Mammoth. Who moves on and what are we expecting from all these teams in a quarterfinal recap as well. Coming up next, we're joined by Pat Gregoire and Ryan Ballantine. This is Daily Dive. We're just getting started next. Time for our big guest presented by Fanatics. It's another conference finals preview here on Daily Dive. We are joined by Pat Gregoire and Ryan Ballantine from the airport, by the way. Thanks for traveling with us here on Daily Dive. If I had the beard of Ryan and the hair of Pat, I would be beautiful. Thank you guys both for coming on the show today. And I'm ready to jump right into it if you guys are.
Absolutely, man. It's conference finals.
It's lit. It's definitely lit. So let's first get to the Toronto Rock. The Toronto Rock, we're going to start with Pat on this area of the show. Toronto, of course, was able to beat Halifax despite not having their offensive center. So what do you think helped Toronto accomplish this amazing feat?
I think the big thing was scoring by committee, and not just offensively. You look at transition as well. They were able to contribute in transition, which they normally do. That's kind of like the lifeblood of this team. But I do believe that it was kind of a next man up mentality, but instead of next man up, it's everyone is that next man up. Look at a guy like Zach Mans, who has struggled with scoring consistency over his first 2 seasons in the National Lacrosse League. Well, he jumped out, had a huge game, 6 points. But just looking through their offense, Challen Rogers was the only forward that night that didn't score. Stephen Keogh had 2 goals. Dan Dawson had a goal. As mentioned, Dan Craig, I mean, he could have had 6 with those 4 goals taken back. But honestly, it wasn't the best offensive performance. I know they put up 15. They had 3 empty netters. It wasn't their best offensive output, but they found ways to score when they needed those goals. It was really the rally killers. Those goals that whenever it felt like Halifax was starting to mount a comeback, they'd score a big goal. You saw Latrell Harris with an absolute beauty in transition, and that kind of really injected life into that building. And they found a way to just keep them away, keep them at arm's length, and finish that one off.
I love that term, arm's length, because that's what it felt like this game was all along. Ryan, we've seen all season that the Rock can play any kind of style and be successful. Without Schreiber, do you think that the league was still shocked that Toronto did keep Halifax at arm's length?
I think shocked is probably a strong word. I think when you look at Toronto, they're always kind of in that championship picture. I think they have Champions Cup expectations every single season. So finding out that they won their first playoff game after the season they've had, I don't know that it's too shocking. Lacrosse is that game where one guy can win you the game individually, can put a team on his back and go. And Schreiber's done that for the Rock a lot this season. But when you look at what else that team is built on, when you have that guy come out of the lineup, it does give the rest of the team the opportunity to jump up and grab the spotlight in a way and get offensively involved in a way that they might not have regularly. And the Rock is showing that they're a completely deep team. Having Nick Rose doesn't hurt either.
Rosie, yes, sir. And I love that you mentioned about the others stepping up, getting the opportunity, because we've seen even in the NBA playoffs, stars are out and the team just elevates and does well anyway. So I love that point as well. Let's get to those Buffalo Bandits, as of course these two are on a collision course. But the Bandits, Pat, I'll start with you again. Which player from the Bandits most surprised you in that dominant 20-8 win over Rochester?
Man, that's a good question, because I don't really know if there was one player that surprised me, because pretty much every player that needed to step up stepped up. You look at their usual suspects in Dane Smith and Josh Byrne, both of them went off. The supporting cast in Dogan Anacoke, Chase Fraser, Kyle Buchanan had a great game as well. So I don't know necessarily, if there was one player that surprised me, but one player that definitely rose to the occasion and stepped up their game even more was Ian McKay. And this guy is having such an unbelievable season. He's the Swiss Army knife for this Bandits team. You can play him on offense. You can play defense. He'll run transition. He'll take faceoffs if Max Adler needs a break. I'm pretty sure if they were down 2 goalies, the guy would pop in between the cage and play goalie and probably be pretty good at it, just because he is such a weapon for that team. His stat line, though, was unbelievable. 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. Also, those 2 goals came off only 3 shots, which is huge to me, especially in transition. You got to cash in on those opportunities, but also 11 loose balls and 2 caused turnovers. Just an absolute machine. I don't think he gets nearly enough praise across the league for how valuable he is for this Bandits team.
I think I'm at number 9, number 10 on my top 10 list, but you're right. Across the league, you're completely right about that. Ryan, for the Buffalo Bandits, if you're coaching against this team, can you pinpoint a weakness in this team that can give your guys hope of winning? Like, how do we stop these guys?
I think first and foremost, it's going to start with Nick Rose. Nick Rose needs to be Nick Rose. He allowed 9 goals a game on average during the regular season, which is indicative of his performance and how well he plays the position, and also the help he gets from his defense. They're going to need to be very strong defensively. I'm not going to stand here and say that there's a weakness in the Buffalo Bandits team, but what I will say is that if you make offense uncomfortable for players, take away the time and space, play that pressure defense, sticks in the lanes, making sure that you know your assignments, that you're not losing guys, that guys aren't getting free. That's what's going to be essential for Toronto in this series, is making sure that they're on top of their game defensively, because I feel like any error is going to end up in the back of the net.
I love the transition to the Rock and Bandits there. That was a great segue, because, like I said, these two have been on the collision course all too long, it felt like. So, Pat, which player on the Rock, not named Schreiber or Rose, needs to have a big series for the Rock to have a chance to win? Oh, sorry.
I think Nat No, all good. I think I must have been muted there. I think naturally you look at someone on the offense and maybe you point to, Zach Mans, who had a great game. He's actually been quite the playoff performer. But I'm going to look at the back end because let's be honest, this team is built from the net out. And I'm going to look to a guy in Latrell Harris. I think he is a guy that not only can he provide some offense and a spark in transition, but he is quickly becoming one of their best cover one-on-one defenders. And we know Mitch Desnew is probably going to have to be going up against a Dane Smith. Well, I think on the flip side, someone's going to have to cover Josh Byrne. And I think Latrell Harris could be that guy. I think he is going to be such a huge factor. Yes, they have other guys like Chris Corbeil, who they picked up, finally getting into this lineup. Brad Curry, obviously, again, probably get a heavy dose of him going up against Josh Byrne. But I just feel like we know Curry is so solid, so sound defensively. Mitch Desnew, defender of the year. Latrell Harris is ready for that big moment. He's ready to break out. He's ready to take it to the next level. He's elite, but I think he's ready to be a superstar in this league. And I think a big series helping his team to the NLL finals would be the next step in that direction.
Amen. And I interviewed him on the show, and his charisma screams superstar. So I love that.
Man. He's the best.
Ryan, give me somebody not named Dane or Vince. I'm kind of giving the Josh Byrne out here. Which player on the team needs to impact the series?
Well, I love that you leave me the leading scorer on the team. That's fantastic. The guy's got 47 or 45 goals in the regular season. Dane Smith is a great player who got a ton of assists. And the reason you get a ton of assists is because the other guys are doing the scoring. It's all well and good to pass the ball, but if the guy has no finish, you're not going to rack up the kind of points that Dane Smith did this year. So I think, if you're looking at this, it's going to be Josh Byrne doing what he's done all season and getting the job done here for the Bandits this weekend.
I believe I saw a stat on NLL that Josh Byrne had 19 points last year against the Rockets alone. It's insane. Yeah. So Pat, who represents the East in the NLL finals in your mind?
I'm checking my pockets here because, I think at this point it's a coin flip because I think these teams are so evenly matched. You look at the offensive power of Buffalo, you probably give the advantage there. You look at the defense, well, I think top to bottom, they've got the better defense. You look at goaltenders, Matt Vince, better body work over his career. But this season, Nick Rose has the better numbers. So if I have to pick, I think I got to go with the Toronto Rock here. Defense wins championships. I think that this is the year that they finally get over the hump. Look at all the moves they made in the offseason to try to get there. Again, wouldn't be surprised if it's Buffalo, but, I'm going to roll with the Rock here. It's going to go to 3, though.
Ryan, are you going with Canada? Okay. Are you going with the Rock here, or are you just going with the Bandits to have revenge?
Well, I when I was in broadcasting school, they said that when everybody agrees on something, it's boring. So just for that point, I'll take Buffalo. I think again the margins are razor thin between these two teams, and it's really going to come down to whether or not the defense of Toronto, which has been excellent all season, is able to stop that offensive onslaught from the Bandits. Defense wins championships, but you can't win if you don't score. So for me, I'm going to take the Bandits in a close one. I agree. It probably goes 3 games, which is better for all of us anyway, because the more lacrosse we get to see of this caliber, the happier we all are. So for that reason, I'll take the Bandits.
But what I will say this, let me change my pick if the injury report comes out and Tom Schreiber isn't there, because that's an absolute
wild.
Game changer. That's an absolute.
I was wondering if you
changer.
guys had any inside information, but apparently we don't yet. So hopefully
they've been keeping it quite close to the chest. So once I find out, we'll let you guys know.
Love it. We're like the Sunday Night Football crew. We're going to pick the same thing here. It might be totally wrong. But we're not done yet, guys. We're going to come back and talk about the Western Conference because that's fun as well. It's Daily Dive, our conference finals preview with Pat and Ryan. We'll be right back to wrap up this show. by these awesome gentlemen, Pat Gregoire and Ryan Ballantine, two friends of the show that are back for this NLL Conference Finals preview. And Ryan, you might be a tiny bit biased for this one, but Calgary Roughnecks did get by those pesky purple cats from Panther City, aka Fort Worth, Texas. How were they able to pull it off? Because it was not easy.
No, it certainly wasn't. In fact, I think the game was closer than I expected it to be, given how they had handled Panther City throughout the season and the regular season. But I mean, Panther City showed up. They showed up ready to play. Calgary ended up finding a way and pulling away late by doing what they do, which is being strong defensively, relying on Christian Del Bianco, who only allowed 3 goals in the last 45 minutes of the game. This is the pattern for the Roughnecks this year is they shut you down in the second half and they go to work offensively and they make their adjustments. And that's what they were able to do last week.
Love it. Good game. One of the best games of the weekend, in my opinion. Pat, we know everyone praises their defense, but what strengths are there in, like, let's say, a half-court set using NBA terms? If the offense needs to get going, what strengths do the Roughnecks have that's not based on their defense?
Well, I think the beauty of this offense is, I mean, one, they've got their two-headed monster on each side of the floor. They're very floor balanced, which is tough to game plan. You know, Jesse King and, of course, Tyler Pace have the ability to go off every night. But for me, it's their cast of characters who I think are playoff built. And the guy that I looked to who had an unreal game was Tanner Cook. Like, I watched this guy a lot during his junior career playing for the Whippy Warriors. This guy was built for playoffs. He's tough, not afraid to go to the dirty areas. He'll get involved in the physical stuff. He's going to be in every scrum, giving guys face washes. He might take a penalty, but he is a guy that's engaged from start to finish. He comes up with those big goals. They really do a really good job just executing their game plan that Kurt Malowski puts in every single night. It's not a team that just has one set offense and runs that out the whole game. They'll go out with what their offensive set is for the first half. But, Ryan said it. The adjustments for this team on both sides of the ball is remarkable every single game. And that's a true testament to Kurt Malowski and his coaching staff. They kind of slow play everything, figure what's working, what's not working. Second half starts, and it's a completely different game plan.
I like that underrated part of the game, the coaching at halftime. It's a great point by you guys there. So those defending champions that I guess we're going to talk about them again here, the Colorado Mammoth, who weren't supposed to be here, but they're here anyways. Ryan, which player was the best for Colorado in your mind that was key in that upset over San Diego?
Well, this one's a no-brainer. I talk about goaltending a lot on this show, but Dylan Ward made more saves than his team had shots. More saves than his team had shots. Not goals, not like more than they had shots. Dylan Ward made 54 saves on the weekend against the highest scoring team in the National Lacrosse League through the regular season. The list of Hall of Famers on that offense in San Diego is more than you can count. Dylan Ward shutting them down and doing what he did was remarkable. He's the reason they won the championship previously, in my mind. He's the reason why they're still in this battle for the Champions Cup this year.
Playoff Ward, baby. Pat, is it surprising to you and maybe others you've heard from that the Mammoth did pull this off? What was the general consensus around the league that you've seen that Mammoth actually got this done?
I think a lot of people were surprised that the Seals, this, quote unquote super team, you looked at them at the start of the year, picking up so many big names. Ryan mentioned it, like Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer on that offense. But I've heard you talk about this on this show a lot, Mike. Like, we really didn't see a consistent output from the Seals team from start to finish. But down the stretch, it was like, okay, here we go. This team has now come to life. They've got the defensive support to back that up. The defense was playing much better. Frank Chiliano started to play better. But then when you go into the postseason and you go up against this team that is built for the playoffs, I've said that a few times, but this team really is. And Ryan nailed it. Like Dylan Ward is an absolute game changer. He's a gamer. Like, he absolutely stole that victory. Yes, of course, the offense came up with some big goals. Ryan Lee being healthy certainly helps the chances of this team putting the ball in the net. Eli McLaughlin is just so clutch. He comes up with those big goals. So, yes, around the league, I think a lot of people were surprised. Me personally, I did take the Seals to win. That was my pick. But I said, like, let's not kid ourselves here. This Colorado team kind of waited in the weeds. They were not playing their best lacrosse, but they always find ways, especially last year, we saw it, to win in the big moments. That's exactly what they did. And I tell you, man, I truly believe if San Diego maybe matched up with Panther City or even Calgary, maybe they get in. But just the way that these two teams matched up, I just felt in favor of Colorado.
Good point. And you see them taking shots at your Calgary team there, Ryan. You think San Diego could have gotten past
No,
Calgary?
hey. I said maybe. I
think they would have been. I think if the Steels and Calgary had played last week, it would have been an epic battle, and it would have gone down to the wire, just like it did against Colorado. Because I think Calgary and Colorado are built very similarly in that way. So the Steels and the Roughnecks produced some of the best lacrosse this season, in my opinion, between their 3 regular season games, and it sure would have been fun to see all of those former Roughnecks coming back in to see that game. But Calgary versus Colorado is a tale as old as time. I mean, it happens every single season. And for, I think, 8 or 9 years in a row, Calgary ended Colorado's season in the playoffs before Colorado was able to win and get over the hump last year and get a championship.
Wow. That's awesome. I love the history because I did not know that as a newer fan, if you will. So now they're matching up, and Ryan, which goalie is under more pressure to play great? Playoff Dylan Ward or Christian Del Bianco, who could be the MVP?
I still think it's Dylan Ward. He had to steal that game last week for the Mammoth. Del Bianco's going to do what Del Bianco does, and I think he's a great goalie. Dylan Ward needs to, as much as they I think it was 13-12 last week. If he's going to win and the Mammoths are going to win this week, they're probably going to have to keep the Roughnecks under 11. I think the Roughnecks lost 1 game all season when they've scored a 12th goal. So if you're going to beat the Roughnecks, you have to keep them to under 11. Not something that's easy to do in today's NLL.
And he's not giving betting advice, by the way.
That's right. Just statistical analysis.
Right. Pat, which player that is not a goalie do you think either side is going to impact this series the most? Or
This is a great question because I think the X factor. There's a few X factors on both sides. I'll give you one each. I'll go.
That's fair.
On Colorado, I'm going to go with Zed Williams. That guy absolutely was pivotal in their championship run last year. He had a great game. Put up 5 points. He's a physical specimen. Creates some space for Ryan Lee as well. I think if this team's going to get back to the finals, he's going to have to play a huge role. On the flip side. For the Roughnecks, I already mentioned the two-headed monster on offense with King and Pace, but I'm going to go on the back end. Courier, Zach Courier. He is must-see TV every time this guy touches the floor. You want to talk about Ian McKay's stat line from the week? Well, Courier's was even more impressive. What we saw from him last week, like he literally just willed his team to victory with so many great plays. He gets involved in the offense and transition. He can be your shutdown defender. He's a menace on loose balls. He's on the ball team. So I think that he had 6 caused turnovers last game. That is just insane. I think that he is going to play a huge role, not just defensively, but because let's be honest, this defense for Colorado is strong. It's stout. Dylan Ward is a playoff performer. Goals, I think, might come at a premium, as Ryan already mentioned. They're going to have to score in transition, which kind of seems pretty easy at this point for the Roughnecks with how fast they play out of the back end. But I think he's going to have to score a few big goals in this series.
I love it. All right, Ryan, I didn't try to fly here, but why don't you give me a pick here between the Mammoth and the Roughnecks?
I think, it's a battle of the last 2 champions, the last 2 teams to raise the Champions Cup. So I'm going to take the Roughnecks. I think they're built defensively to get ready for the playoffs, and over the course of the season, their offensive players have gotten better and better at putting the ball in the net. I think they're hungry, they're young, they're ready to win.
Love it. Pat, you're not flying to tell me.
I know Ryan said that, picking the same side's boring, but I'm going to have to take the same side. I'm sorry. Calgary is a team that's built for the playoffs. Again, theme of this show. I totally agree with everything that Ryan said. Of course, yes, I think this series probably goes 3 games. Like I said, the other one, goaltending is going to be huge for both sides. But for me, I just feel like this Calgary team has something special. Maybe on paper, not as strong offensively as some of the other teams remaining in the postseason, but they just have guys that step up in big moments. And I just feel like, I guess based off my predictions, we're going to get an all Canadian showdown in the finals.
And, I guess if both games are split, we'll have to have you guys on next Wednesday for Game 3, too, for crying out loud. It's been so fun. Thank you both, gentlemen. Ryan, fly safe, man. And Pat, you do what you got to do as well.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it, buddy.
So much.
Better run, thanks.
Oh, yeah. Those guys are awesome. That was so fun. It's our NLL Conference Finals preview. That was definitely worth it. There's some great playoff lacrosse coming up this weekend. And by the way, since I'm ending the show here, I want to let you guys know tomorrow on the show is Callum Crawford will be returning. I know Kansas City had a heartbreaking loss. I got to ask Callum Crawford what he was doing when he was skipping with those awesome shoes on. That was so fun. Posted that on our social media. But thanks so much for Pat Gregoire and Ryan Ballantine for joining the show. It's been a fun hump day here on Daily Dive. We'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place. This show ain't over. Well, it is today, but you get it. So for everyone that watches the show, for all the guests that come on the show and everyone behind the scenes, I am your host, Michael Karvelis. Have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow.